Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, we're going to talk about the newly released program by the federal government, 30-year amortizations for first-time buyers in certain circumstances. We're going to talk about what those circumstances are, and will this actually make home buying more easy for first-time buyers? Real quick before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. When I'm not making videos like this, I'm helping people just like you buy and sell real estate across the Lower Mainland. If that sounds interesting to you, or you just wanted to chat about real estate with me one-on-one, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, so the big news of the week is the federal government launching a 30-year amortization program for first-time buyers. Now, this was announced back in March or April when the 2024 budget was released. We didn't have too many details of it, just some sparse details. As of you watching this video now, this is now in full effect. So as of August 1st, 30-year amortizations for first-time home buyers in certain circumstances. So we're going to start by breaking down, what is the qualification behind this? Is this actually going to affect a lot of first-time home buyers and its effect on the market? So how to qualify for this program outside of being a first-time home buyer is the property must be an insured mortgage. So what that means is you need to be putting less than 20% down. And it also needs to be, this is a very big caveat, it also needs to be on new construction, a property that has not been occupied previously residentially is how they define it. So 30-year amortization for first-time home buyer, provided it's an insured mortgage, so less than 20% down, and on new construction. So already you can see that they've thrown in several caveats into the equation to this 30-year amortization. What exactly is this benefit of 30-year amortization? How it has worked so far is if you put 20% down on a property, so you're on an uninsured mortgage, you are able to get a 30-year amortization today. And what that does, the difference between 30 years to pay off the mortgage and 25 years, that ultimately brings your payments down. Over that extra 5 years, you will pay more interest, but it brings your monthly payments down. So from a cash flow perspective, it's helpful for a lot of purchasers. So that has already been in place. Now, when you allow for this 30-year amortization on the insured mortgages, ultimately what ends up happening, aside from obviously the monthly payments coming down for these purchasers, is these purchasers, first-time buyers, they get more buying power as well. So if people are thinking that, okay, coming out with this change, this is going to make it, easier for first-time buyers just from a payment perspective, typically what we see in these scenarios is when it gets a little bit easier from a cash flow perspective, buyers push themselves a little bit more. And in fact, that 5% buying power, it ends up fueling into the market, the extra demand to get into these properties. And now you see these prices rise because, people are able to qualify for a little bit more, and it's pushing that bottom up. So I want to break down for me what I feel is one of the largest gaps in this policy, and that would be the new construction requirement. New construction is generally sold in pre-sale format. Very often when you're buying a new unit, a brand new unit from a developer, they are selling these units anywhere from 18 months prior to completing on that project to 3 or 4 years even. So generally speaking, the way we have defined new construction is you're buying it straight from the developer, and most often you're buying this in a pre-sale format. Now, to break it down, when you're buying in pre-sale, we have wood frame projects, and those are typically the lower rise projects you see, 4 to 8 stories ish. And then, the high rises that you see are built via concrete. So you have wood frame, you have concrete projects, and historically, these types of projects have required different amounts of a deposit for the buyer to put down. So on a wood frame, which is takes a shorter amount of time to complete. It's less capital intensive for the developer. It doesn't cost as much to construct these. Very often they ask the market or ask buyers for anywhere from 10 to 15% as a deposit. So under this program that we're talking about, where it needs to be an insured mortgage less than 20% down, that works. When you look at concrete construction, the high rises, deposits for those are typically 20%. And we've seen in hot markets that deposit stretch up to 25%. So in an instance where a developer is requiring 20% down as a deposit, that already converts over to this being an uninsured mortgage and not being able to take advantage of this program. So at face value, the benefit or the type of product that's going to benefit from this is new construction wood frame projects. And so it's actually, a smaller amount of units. It's a very small amount of units that will actually benefit from this. Circling back to, this being a first-time buyer incentive, new construction historically is not a first-time home buyer product. Pre-sale purchases are not generally a first-time home buyer product. Oftentimes people are buying as their first units a pre-sale unit, but with no intention of moving in and an intention of selling that at completion or prior to. But first-time home buyers, they become first-time home buyers or home buyers because of a situation of circumstance. Perhaps an individual meets a partner and now they want to move forward in life and they need to get a home together. And so they start looking for a home. They are not planning out their first home 18 to 36 months or 4 years in advance of buying that first home. They may be a tenant that unfortunately gets displaced because someone purchased their property and now they're having to buy something else. So a first-time home buyer is not planning to buy a home 2 years out. They're planning to buy a home today. So when you make this requirement for new construction, it really shrinks who's able to take advantage of this program. When I look at this from a more holistic angle, the federal government, they have this bold plan to build almost 4 million homes by 2031. We are nowhere near pacing to that degree. We'd have to build 500,000 homes per year. We're building about half of that. And in fact, looks like construction starts will be going down for next year. So I think from the federal government perspective, they're seeing that we are nowhere near hitting this pace of new construction. They're seeing that builders are scaling back on projects, pausing, hitting the hold button, not moving forward on projects. When I look at it, I think, okay, is this a way for the federal government to basically incentivize the development community to say, keep on going with your projects, keep digging, keep the shovels in the ground, keep moving forward. We're launching this incentive to make it easier for you to sell your units and give you a competitive advantage to be able to sell these units. And circling back to that, additional 5% buying power, if this gets built into the price, is this an opportunity for developers to capitalize, to basically differentiate their product? I think this is almost more of an incentive for developers than it is for first-time home buyers. And the development community does need to get incentivized in the environment we're in with the rates where they're at. Are we now going to see some concrete projects from well-capitalized developers require 15% as a deposit, 17% as a deposit versus 20% and not being eligible for this program? That remains to be seen, but restricting it to the development community, again, not really a first-time home buyer product. Now, first-time home buyers very often in our world, when they're buying condos, very often, and it's unfortunate, but very often they're looking at tenanted properties. And so when I look at the different policies, I look at us provincially and I see the provincial government basically telling buyers, we do not want you to buy tenanted properties. We're going to make it incredibly difficult for you to buy a tenanted property. We're going to make it so you have to give 4+ months of notice if you want to buy a tenanted property. And in doing so, your financing is not going to be secured. Your financing hold will expire. So you're going to have to purchase this property without having the certainty of having financing in place. We're going to make it extremely difficult for you to buy a tenanted property. And then I look at this on a federal level, and the federal government basically saying, we want to make it easier for you to buy a product directly from a developer that is vacant. So it's all these pieces kind of working in motion in that same sort of direction where, we want to help the development community, and we need to get more units out there. But when you make the policy so incredibly restrictive that it doesn't actually help people, it becomes just a lot of political speak that, hey, this is what we're doing to help you. This is what we're doing to help the first-time buyer. This is going to make it easier for you from a cash flow perspective. But when you break it down, you know, it's not going to be the right opportunity for most first-time buyers. I think if they really wanted to give this policy or this new program some teeth, the way to have done it was to have said this is good for any property. The other thing you have to think about are purchase prices, right? So if the $1 million threshold is where things change on a new construction property, it doesn't get you a whole lot beyond a condo, right? In certain areas, in Vancouver, definitely on the Vancouver side, you're looking at 2-bedroom condos, etc. It doesn't really open it up to more, family type properties. Whereas if you had rolled this out to all types of properties, now first-time buyers can look at older properties that are larger, they have a lower purchase price, they can still take advantage of this 30-year amortization. It will still help them with cash flow, but yet this wasn't rolled out to all types of properties. The next question I have that I think we know the answer, but I want to see how this is defined is, okay, it needs to be a newly built home that has not been residentially occupied. What happens in the case where a buyer has purchased a pre-sale, they have completed on it, they haven't put anyone in it, it's completely vacant, it hasn't been residentially occupied? Will that be eligible for a 30-year after they complete? Very often we're putting these properties on the market immediately, staging them, getting them ready to go. They've never been occupied, but now the owner is no longer the developer. Can a buyer coming to that property get the 30-year amortization? Because that would help as well. We see a whole number of these units that are purchased in pre-sale. Again, that pre-sale purchaser is not typically your first-time buyer. They're not planning so far out, but it's bought by an investor or someone who already owns a property. They're buying a second property, complete on it, list it. Are they going to allow for 30-year amortizations on that scenario? I don't think so by the way it's worded, but I do think that would open up the scope. I do think that would offer a scenario where we are not displacing tenants. We have a vacant property and we're making it easier for a first-time buyer to get into that property. And again, because first-time buyers are buying for today, that's actually the ideal scenario for them. So I want to watch that closely and see if they do somehow roll it out in that circumstance. But my gut tells me that this is going to have to be a direct from developer purchase. And so as we add in all of these different caveats to this program, you can see it's a small sliver of people that are actually going to benefit from it. So when we look at, what might this do for the market? What might it do for prices? Generally, when you increase people's buying power, you see prices go up. And we know this from coming out of the pandemic and what happened when we dropped rates right down. People's buying power increased and we saw real estate prices increase. So all in all, not a great program because it's quite restrictive. A couple of tweaks could have made it a much better program to work with. But again, I think this is more so fueling the development side of things and saying, keep on building. We need you to build, keep building. This is more of an incentive for you, Mr. and Mrs. Developer, than it is for the first-time buyer. So there you have it, guys. I hope you learned something in this video. If you did, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. And if you enjoy weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. And lastly, again, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley, you want to chat with me about your real estate situation, you can book me for a free call or just send me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever is easiest for you. I'd love to chat with you, but I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and I look forward to seeing you next week.